All right, welcome back. Ooh, that's a close view. Let's get the background in there. Welcome to Solana Super Team's Product Guild. As you already know, I'm your host, Jessica, Munich City Captain here for Solana's Super Team, Guild Lead for Solana's Super Team, and all those other boring titles that no one really cares about. You're just here to learn about good products, how to make them, what makes them better for the end market. You might be a dev, you might be a founder, you might be a product developer, you might be a UX specialist, whatever you're here for. We're so excited to have you. Now, this is a pre-recording. So as you know, I'm going to be on with you on X. So all you have to do is drop comments in the space chat, either on my personal profile or on Solana Super Team, and I'll be answering that as we go. And if you have any further questions, our guests will tell you exactly where you can meet them if you want to talk to them directly as well. So we have a great episode for you today. We're going to talk about how to design end-to-end ecosystems. And I have two amazing guests joining us that I cannot wait to introduce you. So without further ado, gentlemen, take it away. Tell us about Braille. Tell us about you. Give us the lowdown.
Thank you, Jess, for having us on this amazing podcast. So I'm Alex. I'm French, based in Madrid, and I'm co-founder of Braille. Braille is a product studio specialized in Web3. So we do like full range of services from brand, product design, product management, product development, and we help teams getting the best of their application with a very big focus on user experience. And yeah, I'm letting you the floor, T.
So my name is Team. I'm also one of the co-founder at Braille. I'm here spearheading the design department as the head of design, and I focus on everything design, essentially. So like from brand design, product design, application design, to like what we're going to talk about, ecosystem, user experience, and everything. So yeah, that's basically what I specialize in. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm super looking forward to this chat because as a retired product designer who has now just moved into BD, but with a passion for products still, I think it's such an interesting topic in the industry because a lot of times design isn't understood or development of the product isn't understood. And I have a lot of founders and a lot of developers that are always on my guild that want to get it at a deeper level to form better products. So I'm super stoked for this whole conversation and having both of you on. So let's just dive in. Let's go hard right here at the start. Tell me a little bit about Braille. So what would you say are your either unique principles or philosophies to approach the Web3 ecosystems? And how are you set apart from other studios that companies might come across?
Well, we have a user-first mantra over here, focusing on providing our clients with Web3 native talents. And for there, our unique principles and philosophy that defines ecosystem UX is that we need to really thoroughly understand what we're building, what ecosystem we're building in, right? So for example, if we have a project that's building on Solana, for instance, we would need to ensure all the peripheral toolkits that this particular Solana project's user will encounter, right? For example, if you're building a DeFi application on Solana, right? You're not just confined in that DeFi platform, you're also looking at the Explorer, you're also looking at the wallet, you're also maybe tracking some other ecosystems, metrics, and everything. There's a lot of tools that is essential for a person to use one application holistically, right? So First of all, we always try to learn about the ecosystems first and its peripheral toolkits, and then we look into making sure that that particular project have that sort of connection access in the right context for the user to, say, for example, look at their transaction. For example, be able to use Phantom on their mobile app to access the application and all that stuff. So for us, the philosophy is building on Web3 is not like traditional Web2 applications where you're just building this and then that's it. You're focusing just on this box, right? You have to look all the way out and ensure that every touch points where the user might need to go is met, right? So that is something that we put that into our work here at Braille to ensure.
Maybe if I can add another one here is, but that one is more like a practical way of working, is like never assuming, because we are in a highly engineering environment, and we've been there for years, right? So everything that we know, from just wallet installation to just liquidity providing, for example, those type of things, there is like a big majority of the society that doesn't even know what it is, right?
Yeah.
And so never assuming is one of the things as well that we tend to repeat ourselves, is like never assume, never assume. To give you an example, we literally, TT last week did a user interview with my girlfriend that never used a wallet of her life. And it was an hour of like refreshing thoughts. And she was like, what is a wallet? Like, oh, I have to put my the passphrase on cloud. And she was like, what is the passphrase? It's like all of those type of things that now seems like so evident for us are not, and so this is always like never assuming is kind of like an ethos that we use to always deconstruct all of the thought process that have been put for years now in the blockchain industry.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up, because a lot of our developers that come to this guild specifically to learn, they realize they take so much for granted. And when we're in UX or within the research or the UI development, we're always the ones going, no, trust me, no one's going to use it that way because you do. They're going to want it in different steps. And the devs are always going, no, it has to be this way. It makes sense to me. And so I think it is good to go back to that girlfriend test.
Yeah,
definitely.
And the thing with developers that they are usually building for themselves. They're not really building for the users in the first phase of the development, right? So it's very important to get a lot of user testing done and really let other people to have a fresh mindset to come in. And that, I think, is what will make Web3 more adopted by the masses, right? So it has to be inclusive in one aspect.
Definitely. And I think that takes us into a really good and really important question as well, which is, as you're working, I think this is a ecosystem agnostic question. How do you balance exploring different user needs when we're in this highly technical Web3 world and with all these different setups, such as failed transactions, wrong chain bridging, and using that exploration as a way to really create a long-term strategy, because the end-to-end in an ecosystem is all about being able to see the whole strategy. So how do you do this?
So that one is like one of my favorite subjects, because we've been working on that a lot with Polkadot since more than a year now. And I will even say, like, it's not only about one ecosystem. Then if you want to even add a bit more complexity, is like it's about the food industry, right? Like if we take Solana as an example, as a monolithic chain, it's very, I'm not going to say very easy, but it's at least the easiest one of experiences in an ecosystem, because you don't have to bridge things. You don't have liquidity scattered across like different type of tokens. But when you start thinking as a full industry-wide with a view like this, then it starts being like, okay, there is just too much complexity. And I will say, how do we start? Because we don't have the answer. To give you a clear answer on that is like, right now, there is no good practice in terms of doing this, because there is not enough coordination, collaboration, and communication. It's like we are still at a stage in the industry where we haven't been really a winner. We could always argue that Ethereum, Solana are winners, but still they are working in their own direction. And the interoperability between those two, if we only take those two, right, is not to a point where users are the centerpiece, right? What do I mean by this? Like, if you want to use Solana, if you want to use Ethereum, you will probably have 2 or 3 wallets differently. And the complexity goes even farther when you start using rollups from Ethereum. So right now, where are we? Again, we are still a very young industry, like 10 years. We are still at this stage of people need to start talking between each other, even though they are direct competitors. to start building standards, right? The same way as the web was a full scattered information, and Google and other entities started creating standards. We are this kind of like a term in terms of the industry. If you look at an industry timeline, right, it's like now we are starting picking up winners, and we are actually seeing that with merge and acquisition as well this year. There is a lot of big players that are buying others, but we need to have like some people that are talking at the industry level, saying those are the standards. Obviously, Ethereum, Solana are pushing them through like their own how would I say, like their own legitimacy, right? Legitimacy. Same as Ethereum right now. I don't know if you saw that one. The $1 trillion security plan. It's an article that they just shared a couple of days ago, and basically here they are laying out like all the foundation of like how should be the on-chain UX in terms of security. You know, those are the type of work that are very long, very complex, that requires a lot of buy-in from all of the stakeholders in order for us to finally have, as you were saying, right, like what are the specifics needed for the user to actually use a blockchain? Well, right now, it's basically you use one blockchain, you have those specific standards. I would love to see a moment in this industry where you just say like, I want to be on chain. I just have to download one wallet that I know is the good one, is a very good one, and that's it. The same way as you would right now to use internet, you have like 3-4 browser. That's all you need to know. Yeah, there is nothing else that you need to know as a user.
And just to add on top of what Alex have said over here, I think as like Alex said, we're a relatively young industry, and we have an ethos of, having this decentralization principle across every ecosystem, right? Like Ethereum's working on this, Polkadot's working on this, Solana's working on this, and this kind of trickles down to how we work as well. So Alex over here, has the experience of managing a very decentralized and clustered teams. And that is something that Web2 companies don't really have because they're completely centralized, right? So having like that part, I think Alex could explain a little bit better. But
yeah, but I won't go there because it's another podcast that we need to do. The decentralization against like centralization. This is
that's another topic that we're exploring as well, to really anticipate the how we set this up and deliver the best possible experience for ecosystems. To coordinate and align.
Yeah, that's really interesting because it is hard to match expectations from end to end. And I think one of the beautiful things about our industry, with it being so new, is you can put out an MVP right on the market and live test with your users, and they expect it to be kind of janky and kind of broken, which would never fly in Web2. So we do have that benefit going for us. But as you're working on a project, so how do you define your KPIs then? Because it is so advanced and it is so challenging as you're working end to end on the ecosystem. So as you're working through the different phases like discovery and the strategy and your overall ecosystem phase, what signals tend to matter the most? Have you seen any that are consistently, or do you really feel that they consistently change?
So again, this is the KPI topic. At an app level, they are very well understood, like the number of users, like the number of volume that you are able to do, etc. The retention as well. Now on an ecosystem level, it's a bit more complex, obviously, because you are adding multiple apps into the full picture, even like the exchange, if you would say so. But I will still keep those KPI, which is like the one that we know, right? Is like how much volume are you doing, as well? What are the inflows and outflows of your ecosystem? But then it's again, you have to match them with potentially like the campaign that you are doing. Like if it was an airdrop season, or like liquidity season with a lot of incentives, it might not be actually reflecting the user usage, So as an ecosystem, and it's more, they are more saying like what I would like to see, because I didn't see much ecosystem able to do that yet. But as an ecosystem, what I would love to see as in terms of KPIs is actually the number of actual users that are performing real relevant tasks. So being like, maybe not only DeFi, but like I'm thinking about Base here, right, with their Base app, where you can actually use real product data, which is like the number of retention, the number of drop-off as well in a full funnel flow, you know. As of today, it's very, I would even say that I didn't heard of any ecosystem being able to do that. But what I would love to see as a product manager myself, for example, is like you have an end-to-end journey of like, let's say we're on Solana and I want to know how much people were able to put liquidity on, I don't know, is Jupiter doing liquidity, TT? I don't remember. Yes?
No,
Yeah.
they're like aggregator. Yeah.
Yeah, Radium liquidity, for example. How many users from an end-to-end, which is starting from an exchange, let's say Binance, they are buying Solana with their USD, so it's already a part of the flow, right? But you will need to know from Binance their metrics, you know, and then how much of those users are actually able to perform a withdrawal into Phantom, and then from Phantom, how many are able to put liquidity with Radium. This is a full end-to-end journey that will require minimum 3 stakeholders to share their data. And so far, like I don't know if that's something possible, but that's something I would love to see as well, you know. And obviously we could do that as well in more decentralized way with on-ramp services. So then you will just work with Solana and Phantom and then Radium, but those are as well the complexity that ecosystem UX is facing, is like the sharing of the metrics between the teams, obviously.
Another note to add on top of Alex, I think another KPI that is very important and relevant right now, in my opinion, is the revenue generated by each dApps within the ecosystem. For example, as we're looking now, for example, Hyperliquid is like having massive amount of revenue coming in, and that itself is reflecting to the performance of Arbitrum as the Ethereum's rollup. So you can see that at least in the Ethereum sense, like every L2's performance and its respective dApp is adding up to the reputation and the ecosystem of, say, Ethereum in general, right? So it trickles down. For Solana, there are Flash Trade, there's Camino Finance, there's a lot of other dApp that is generating a lot of revenue as well. That also reflects to the ecosystem UX. The more revenue you generate means more retention of the user. Trust is also another KPI. Trusting the dApp to put their hard-earned money into it to generate or trade, right? So I think revenue and trust itself, and Alex, retention is super important for ecosystem to track its user experience and performance.
Yeah, that reminds me of not too long ago, somebody posted a paper of cost per wallet as a new metric to start tracking to see. I'll have to find the paper, and I want to say it was Alex on Chain that wrote it, and I could be wrong about that, but it was all about how to predict sticky wallets through user behavior and then the cost of acquisition per wallet and their addition in. And I found that really interesting because it is a difficult topic to find a solution to, or even to measure and to look at. So that trust layer is super important for sure. I blanked out there for a moment because I was thinking of 5,000 questions, because that was such an amazing answer coming through there. How would you even approach this problem though? Because it is something that I think a lot of ecosystems are really looking to solve. So what would you do?
So I can give you already a practical thing that we are doing is obviously it's impossible to share yet for now the metrics. Like the stakeholders I was telling you, they are not going to do that. It's too much of a hassle. So what we can do as a workaround is do user testing, where you are asking the people to actually do the full end user flow. So then it's not really metrics that you are doing, it's more qualitative approach, right? But still you have a lot of insight. As I was telling you with my girlfriend interview last week, we literally did that. We had to skip the withdraw part of Binance because it was a bit already too complex, but this is a good workaround that you can do, but it requires your team to actually put some time to map out all of those journeys. And then I as well find the user. But then again, this is something that is trivial, I would say, for a product team. It's like this is the day-to-day of a product team from the basics, right? It's like you have all of your journey mapped out and you have multiple user interview in the backlogs, depending on what type of feature you would do. So that would be the first workaround, and I'm trying to think of another one right now. Possibly trying to make the on-chain metrics talking a bit more than what it is right now. And this is another topic, and maybe we don't dive too much into it, but we've been trying to see with Dune dashboard, like if there is a way for us as product team to actually translate it into user behavior metrics, because right now it's only very like raw data, and it can be DeFi data with volume and the KPIs we've talked about. But how do you translate retention or drop off, which are like pure user behavior metrics, into on-chain metrics? This is something we haven't really found the solution, but this could be a workaround. It's like, but we would need teams to work on that.
Yeah, but it's a good discussion, because I think when we're looking at retention and drop-offs, it does come down to good design, to good flows, to understandability. So let's talk about, because I want to highlight a lot of the work that you've done so far. So on your website, you have a design study for Polkadot with the cross-chain swaps. Let's talk about that real quick, because how did you reconcile the flexibility for teams with consistency as you were kind of designing the modular design system that you used in this?
So, yeah. This is for me. When we are designing the cross-chain swap component, we always have to think about the mental model of how a typical user will be swapping. In some of the bigger names like Uniswap or 1inch and all those dApps that have a lot of user retention and volume coming in, right? So first, that's basically how we came up with the cross-chain swap component, is to integrate how we can cross-chain and also swap at the same time. And I think a lot of other Polkadot wallet actually like kind of have that kind of same design, which is really good. And for the flexibility for teams when it comes to consistency, we as an ecosystem, there isn't necessarily like a design system yet, as we do have some initiative that is working on that, right? But for consistency, you can use your own design language, right? Every team has their own design system. Every team has their own branding, right? But I think the user experience comes from like, okay, how does the user flow look like, right? And what does the user need to know before they look at this component, right? Like if I'm a grandma coming in and then looking at the cross-chain swap, I wouldn't know what to do. But we also need to define who is this, what is this component, who are the person using this, right? So you have to think about, okay, realistically, it will be someone who already know how to use a centralized exchange that is going to go on chain, right? That's the first journey. So that's also in the ecosystem UX, right? Most of the people would usually start on a centralized exchange like Binance or Bybit, right? Now why did I want to use a cross-chain swap, right? Oh, for example, to swap from Ethereum to Solana, for instance, right? From there, we need to understand how the users select the chain and what asset they want to swap to what chain and what asset they want to swap, right? There's also the whole concept of if this is an Ethereum compatible chain or non-EVM chain that you also need to think about, right? For instance, like in dBridge, for example, now they offer cross-chain swap from Ethereum EVM compatible chains to Solana, which is awesome, right? Like these two ecosystems are somewhat now kind of bridging together, and that ecosystem UX is starting to kind of interconnect with the bridges experience, right? So I think cross-chain swap is important, especially on Polkadot, as is a multi-chain environment where there's a lot of parachains working together with their own cross-chain protocol and messaging, right? So that component is exceptionally important, but that's just the framework and the skeleton for you to build your own with the kind of like reference for the best practices that we saw on Ethereum, that we saw on Solana. So for us, it's not about you need to build the design like this. It's more so this is the kind of like experience that we're seeing in other ecosystem and other blockchains as well. This is just a reference for you. You can use any design system, you can theme it however you want, right? But that experience is well tested and probably the best with the less click, right? That people already have a mental model for. If that answers the question, yeah.
Yeah, and that brought up a question for me. When you're doing your UX and you're looking to do it through the ecosystem and make sure you understand why somebody would want to move from one chain to another, do you look for Polkadot native users? Do you look for omnichain users? Or do you use for people in your user pool? Are you also looking for people that have never touched Polkadot before?
Well, for this cross-chain swap component that we did is mostly for people that are relatively kind of experienced within the Polkadot ecosystem, so it's relatively niche. But if you take the picture out where you only have the skeleton with the token and the chain, then you can actually put that into different ecosystems as well. So that kind of component, if you strip out the Polkadot token and swap it out, say, to Solana on the Solana chain, and then you're going to swap it to USDC on Ethereum, that component should work out as well. Maybe there's some changes. Maybe the fee structure is a little bit different. Maybe there isn't a cross-chain fee or something, but there's just network fee that you need to use gas for, right? Or something. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just to add on that, regarding the designing itself and the people we are looking for when we do user testing as well, it really all comes down to what is actually the audience as well of the app. Again, if you think as an ecosystem, some ecosystem will have a very specific audience, or like consumer audience, like Base, Solana, consumer audience. While maybe Arbitrum, they will say like, well, our audience is more DeFi oriented, so you have more advanced user. So it always comes down to like being specific in your audience. You can always then make the testing of like actual real normies and newbies, but that one, again, sometimes to me, I felt it was a bit overkill, because not all blockchain are made to be for the normies, right? It's the same as you won't bring someone to Photoshop when they have Canva or even their iPhone. Like it's like you need to as well have this understanding of like what is actually the audience that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think that's also a good question though, is we want more people on chain. We want more people to get educated. We're in the area of InfoFi. So as you're testing these products, and we do want to work closer to the phrase everyone loves of mass adoption, which I know people will be in the comments like, whoa. But we're trying to get more people, more institutions, more regular users online. How important in this step and finalizing the project in this area are things like micro cues and information points or education for the outliers on a project? Because we're so targeted on our users. Should we just target on our users, or should we have extra points for the outliers just in case to save time?
That's a great question.
So just to confirm the question, are you saying like more documentation for people to understand what they are using?
It's a hot topic right now, and I've seen a lot of people say that on your website you should have full usage documentation that walks even the newest person through, because we want to get new people on. But I feel like that's a heavy load for some people. So if we really know our audience, do we need to have that? Is it important?
I'm totally against having documentation. Like, and one saying that we usually use is like, if your user have to go on the documentation, that's already done. Like, do you need documentation to use Revolut or to use WhatsApp? Like, I've never seen a user that needs to go on the documentation. It will always drop off. So at that very moment, I think it's already a mistake. I'm not saying we shouldn't have docs, right? Because you have like advanced user, power user that want to do things, but at the same time, relying on documentation for bad UX or bad choice of and not enough empathy and not enough work into like deconstructing your full flow. To me, it's a big mistake, because I will say it's kind of like an easy fix, putting everything is in the documentation because we didn't think enough on all the edge cases, for example. Now when you talk about an ecosystem, this is harder as always to navigate. But I still think that the best UX you will ever have is never with documentation in any case.
I want to add on top of that. I don't think when you're designing a DeFi project or any blockchain project, you should make it as all inclusive as possible, where your grandma can just come in. That is not a good idea. Because, for example, if you're building Pendo, right, or RateX on Solana, for instance, where it's dedicated for yield traders, these kind of concept is reserved for someone who has financial literacy, right? And to maximize the usage of target, like if you want your targeted persona to keep using your product, then you must make sure the design and the UI and the UX matches that mental model. The more important question is, how can we get existing savvy financial, like Wall Street analysts or whatever to start using Web3 products, right? You need to match their concept of, finance, for instance. For example, if you're yield trading and all that stuff, then yes, Pendo, if I'm coming from a traditional finance and I come to Pendo, then I would kind of understand what's going on, right? If you want to massively, produce an application that is completely inclusive, then it has to be something that people can relate, right? Not everybody wants to yield farm. Not everybody wants to leverage trade and conduct derivative stuff on Hyperliquid or on Jupiter, right? They don't understand any of that. Maybe what they want is just, I want to park my stablecoin or my saving in something that earns me a higher interest than my traditional bank, right? Where it's only like 0.5% interest per year, right? Maybe I want something like 3% or something. So for mass adoption, if you want to build something that is as inclusive for most users as possible, then you have to build something where everyone is familiar with, right? And if you want to build something, but it is incorrect to build something like, I want to build a derivative on-chain platform that is inclusive for everybody, because not everybody wants to, leverage trade and lose their money, right? So I think you also have to build an application that is progressively disclosing more complex things to your users. For example, if I'm going to Pendo, right, and I'm coming in as a derivative trader or LPer on like Uniswap, then how can I actually have a little bit of documentation or coach marks or whatever kind of like onboarding thing that can help me understand what Pendo is with my existing knowledge base? So for me, just to conclude, I don't believe in designing for everybody. I believe in designing for the people that you want them, for the people that is potentially going to use your product with some prerequisite knowledge.
Okay. Let me segue off of that to kind of the next step then, because obviously anyone that's watching can tell that you guys know your ish inside and out across chains, across development, across communicating product. And I think a lot of time if we go back to devs or founders, sometimes they struggle with that. So taking everything you've told me so far, if you're working with a team that is unfamiliar with UX best practices, especially as we're in kind of this fast moving Web3 protocol world, how do you communicate all of this in order to elevate UX standards, respect their existing workflows, meet their target client, and kind of most importantly, also make sure that your fixes or your suggestions have long-term impact, not just short-term drop?
Okay, great. So that's a great question. So we always start with educating our clients on what UX laws, UX principle, heuristic evaluation is, right? As that is more of a non-user testing method for us designer alone to just kind of let people know. You don't need to test users, right? To know what the law of similarity or Hicks laws or whatever those laws are, like Jacob's law, for example. But these stuff needs to be communicated to our clients. Like first you educate them about these principles and let them know how important it is for the users to to ensure that they don't have too much cognitive load when they're using your product, right? It has to be also targeted to your persona. And from there, it is also important for them, for especially engineers, to actually conduct user tests with the actual users. So one of the examples that we did with one of our clients, OpenServe, as is already on our Twitter, we're helping with their accelerator program. And the people that's joining this kind of hackathon are all developers building a Telegram app, right? And Telegram app, it's already itself a very complex thing. And they're also using the OpenServe SDK, which is an AI agentic SDK for blockchainy stuff, to build something relatively interesting for Telegram users and all that stuff, right? It's a basically Telegram bot for stuff. So we have so they're all developers and they never done a user testing before. So the first time I used their MVP, right, I was kind of completely lost, to be honest. And I don't know where to start. I don't have an intro. I don't know what this is all about. I kind of gave them my assumption using heuristic evaluation and UX principles from, our industry, like knowledge, right? To kind of explain, this is some of the things that you need to look for and everything. But we already have like 3 users or 5 users that we prepared for you. And you are going to test them with a lot of open-ended questions, and just to ensure that the user can complete the core flow that is key to generating revenue for your Telegram bot, right? So for instance, we have a project that basically is a Telegram bot that helps you upload content and moderate the group and everything. So at first, when he tested with the user, the user was very confused. They don't know where to start. They don't know what this is all about and everything. And then he got so much insight. And then I also guided him in that session to say, hey, you cannot lead the user to what you want them to do, or else this will create some sort of biases. And you have to ensure that, everything is from the user. Don't guide them. Let them suffer. If you see them suffer, it means that there's something you can improve to make them suffer less the next time, right? So let them struggle, let them suffer. It's okay, and hear them, and then go back and then reiterate the product and to fit their needs. You will start seeing a pattern of what the user wants, and from there, build that pattern out as an engineer and test it again the next time. And guess what? The second time he did it, and then we test his product, it was so much more intuitive, and I get all the context of how to use this bot on Telegram, right? So it's important to continuously educate, let engineers talk with the users. I know this is something that is completely out of their, job description, but please let engineers talk to the user and let them see how users use their MVP. And there will be so much insight that they can come back and start building a bunch of tasks to improve the user experience. So that's essentially how we would do it.
Yeah, and just adding on that briefly, and to us, this is how we found it like kind of like future-proof for later. It's really like education, as TT was saying, and even more is like trying to deconstruct even their roadmap, because sometimes engineers are coming with like a big plan, like I'm going to do this, all of those features, and then at the end of the day, you're asking them, but like, has it been proven? Like, did you already test your ideas before going for like a 5-10 feature type of product? So all of this MVP mindset, this is something we are starting to see more and more as the industry matures, right? But I like as well to give an example of like always this timeline of industries. Like to me, it feels like right now we are at the same time as like in 2010, 2015, when digital softwares were starting to add the agile methodology into their day-to-day, like of instead of doing waterfall development and like with big plans like semester plan or even yearly plan, then they started doing like sprint and stuff. And to me, we are at this stage as well again in the industry, even though it's a bit different with the smart contract and stuff, but we are seeing more and more professionalism from the teams, and it comes with education as well, right? If you like in 2010, I wasn't working at that time, but I know there was a lot of consulting and like books coming and going out, and it literally reshaped the full industry as we know it today, the digital industry, you know. So that's how we make future-proof things, like making them understand the value of like all of those things that seems evident, into something that they actually see the value of that.
Yeah, I'm going to have the two of you on again, because as you're talking, I keep thinking of 10,000 questions I could ask to keep the conversation going, and I have to keep saying no, just stick and cut some really important questions out that I want to have. So I'm going to ask two questions real quick before we close down. Rapid fire, both of you tell me your number one tip or insight into building end-to-end ecosystems.
All right. Very first is just use it yourself. Like so many people haven't done a full end-to-end, or even if they have done it in the past, they don't remember. Like they actually, like it changed all the time, like because the different stakeholder might have updated their product. So test your own things to understand what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
For me is test again, but instead of like doing like a round trip from start to end and end to back, like what Alex said, I'm going to add a layer of complexity on there and to say use multiple tools to conduct those end-to-end processes as well. For example, for myself, I have, 10 centralized exchanges that I test. For myself, I have currently 15 wallets on my on my browser that I use across all ecosystems.
I don't even want to count.
Imagine 15, the same as your 15 bank.
Yeah, I have a list of like 10, 20 decks that I use, that I test in different ecosystem. And the end-to-end is, I'm in Thailand, so I have Thai bot. So I'm gonna put Thai bot into centralized exchanges, let's say 10 of them, and I'm going to test, like bring that into my wallet and test everything, and then try to bring that Thai bot back as well to my actual Thai bank account. So if that a whole entire loop, right, works out for say just the Solana ecosystem, how fast it is, how much clicks that I need, everything, all that, how can I track my transaction? If all that is clear, that's great ecosystem UX.
Okay. Last question. Are you ready?
Is it fire as well? We have to respond fast.
Yeah, fire question. You cannot use Steve Jobs and you cannot use Norman. Who is your inspiration for design, or what is your go-to design resource for people to know about?
I'm meeting you here, T.
That's a great question. And
first thing that comes to your head.
For me, the first person besides Steve Jobs and Norman that comes into my head is not really a designer, but more of a tech person that really talks about the philosophy behind tech, is Naval Ravikant. He's probably the guy that, he mentioned, like, I fill my head with mental models. That's how it works, right? Like, he has a lot of interesting philosophy that I really like. And he himself is a blockchain person as well. And I think his approach to building tech is quite fascinating. Naval Ravikant. Yeah, that guy is interesting.
Amazing. We haven't had that one yet. So Alex?
I don't have a person per se. I'm sorry about that, but I do have resources that I tend to use as like, this is the playbook I want to follow, and it will be the base one, on base, which is, I think, basebuilder.com. I mean, I can maybe share it to you for the resources. To me, this is one of the best resources place that you can have as an ecosystem. So the developer coming to your ecosystem are actually following the best practices, and it's built by base, obviously. So it's super neat. It's great. To me, this is the best playbook you can have in terms of like building a good ecosystem UX. It's like what base is doing.
Yeah, amazing. I love that so much. We really want to build a good option of places for designers and builders and founders to go to look at these. And so every answer there helps. And I hate letting people prepare for that question, because then they look for the best one or the coolest one. And the one that comes to the top of your head is the one that really matters. So again, very quickly, let everyone know how they can find you, how they can get a hold of you if they want to talk to you more, or just maybe come get some services from Braille.
Yeah, so for everyone, we are on all channels, right? On Twitter, we have our own website, Telegram, Twitter. We can share the links as well in the resource ready. Braille _WTF. The normal name was not available, so that's the problem, to use a name that is in the society as like a total global thing. And yeah, you guys can talk to us about anything related about product, UX in Web3, in AI as well. Basically, we work into the like edge technologies, right? And basically building the experiences of tomorrow. And yeah, we have, as I was saying in the introduction, services ranging from brand up to the development, product design, and product management. So if you have an idea of an app that you want to build, you can come talk to us.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to have to have you on in the future, talk about some of your future projects, maybe convince you to walk us through one of your Figma files if a client will allow it, and we'll stay in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jess.
Thank you very much.